But first, British and US authorities are now saying that intelligence reports suggest that it was a bomb that brought down the Russian airliner in the Sinai Peninsula on the weekend. In the last few hours, Britain's Emergency Cobra Committee has met to discuss the probability that Islamist terrorists may have smuggled a bomb on board the Airbus before it took off from Sharm el-Sheikh on Saturday. And intelligence officials in the US, speaking anonymously to American media, have added weight to those suspicions. Anne Barker has the latest.
The British government isn't saying exactly what it knows, what intelligence it has or who it's from, but it does say it now fears the Russian airliner that crashed in Egypt may well have been brought down by a bomb. The British Prime Minister David Cameron, tonight London time, hosted an emergency cabinet meeting, and soon after, Foreign Secretary Phil Hammond gave a statement.
We've reviewed all the information that we have available from a range of sources concerning the Russian aircraft crash in Sinai at the weekend. As a result of that review, we have concluded that there is a significant possibility that that crash was caused by an explosive device on board the aircraft.
Britain has now suspended all flights to and from Sharm el-Sheikh on the Sinai Peninsula and has a team on the ground working with Egyptian authorities to review security at the airport. Emergency procedures, including tighter screening, will be put in place to bring British tourists there home as soon as possible.
Unfortunately, and very reluctantly this evening, we have concluded that we have to change our travel advice. And we are now advising against all but essential travel by air through Sharm el-Sheikh airport.
Ironically, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is travelling to London for talks with the British Prime Minister about boosting ties between the two countries, just as the UK suspends its flights to Sinai. Britain's action tallies with statements from the US, where unnamed intelligence officials are quoted as supporting the bomb theory. A retired Army intelligence officer, Tony Shaffer, has told CNN it's perfectly feasible that ISIS militants in the Sinai may have infiltrated the airport at Sharm el-Sheikh.
ISIS has been operating successfully. They've done assassinations of political leaders in the region. There's no reason to think that they have not been able to essentially compromise the security of the airport.
The US has now instructed its diplomatic and other staff in Egypt not to travel to the Sinai. But a State Department spokesman, John Kirby, at a White House press briefing was more circumspect on the likelihood the plane crash was caused by a terrorist act.
Our embassy made the decision, as it is their responsibility, to limit U.S. government employees from travelling to the Sinai. And I think until we know more, I think that's the prudent thing to do.
Australia has no airlines that fly to the Sinai, although Canberra says it's monitoring the situation closely. Justice Minister Michael Keenan says Australians should be confident that Australian airports are among the most secure in the world, although he admits nowhere is immune from the threat of ISIS.
The terror threat is at its worst internationally than it has been for a very long time. We're seeing the effects of that here in Australia. We're seeing it in other parts of the world, and nowhere is immune from this. Unfortunately, the reach of ISIL is very large, and its tentacles can come out to commit terror acts in different parts of the world. This is a vicious and barbaric organisation that is capable of doing terrible things.
Islamic State claimed soon after the crash that it was responsible for bringing the plane down and posted online a blurry video purporting to show the Russian airliner as it plummeted to the ground. Egypt and Russia have until now dismissed those claims, but in the past 24 hours, ISIS has released an audio statement reiterating the claims and pledging to reveal in its own time how it did so. Russian investigators have now expanded the search area around the crash site to 40 square kilometres. Forensic experts have found possible blast wounds and burns on the bodies of those victims who'd been seated in the back of the plane. But unless or until they find bomb residue on the victims, their injuries may be consistent with a fuel tank explosion rather than a bomb. Meaning if terrorists did bring down Flight 9268, it may be some time before it's a certainty.
Anne Barker reporting.